life, you should aspire for more. Connect with others who desire to aspire for more. Reach for your goals. When you do, you allow yourself to aspire for more. Dr. Tammy is here to help you aspire for more. When you believe in yourself, anything is possible. Believe in yourself, you'll get more.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining me today for another episode of Journey Toward More. I am your host, Dr. Tammy. I am your life strategist, literacy educator, and consultant, speaker, author, and mentor. I help you move in the direction of more and prepare for what's next. And one of the ways that I do that is through this podcast. This podcast is dedicated to being a catalyst for change in your life and our business. Part of that is exploring the mind, the body, and the soul. So we'll explore those topics that address those areas of your life, both directly and indirectly. Y'all, I can't believe it, y'all. It is going to be 2019. It is 2019. It's already upon us and it's already started. Oh, wow. So this podcast is really my goal. Let's just talk about that. My goal for this podcast is really to shift mindsets, explore more of the world, and that will be done in several ways and through guests and the topics that we talk about. It will also, another one of my goals is to expose us, you, me, to what's available to us. To push you to enter rooms of your heart that you may have denied, neglected, or ignored. So I have some lofty goals myself, y'all, for 2019. I started this podcast in 2018, and I did some great episodes. So if you haven't watched them, go back and watch them. Go back and check them out. And I had to take a step back for a moment and kind of get some other projects completed. And so this 2019, marks a relaunch of this podcast. And so my goal is even to bring to you content that will inspire you, encourage you, and get you doing those things that you desire. To get you to really think about who you are and where you're going. It's a new year, so we're, creating new goals. We're doing setting goals for the year. But let's break that down. Like, we're even thinking about goals for this quarter, this first quarter of the year. And no matter when you're listening to this, no matter when this is on your device or in your car, you probably have goals. You have goals. And those are some that you're working toward. And so this show will hopefully encourage you and inspire you, or give you even strategies, some tools to use to help reach those goals. So yes, I do want feedback. I want to know how is the year going for you, how the moment is going for you, and how this podcast has helped you. So definitely share those with me. This podcast is available on iTunes and Spotify. So I encourage you to, download them, add it to your playlist. If you don't have access to either one of those, it's on my website. You can go to my website, tfdonaldson.com. It's on my YouTube channel. You can access that all through my website. So I definitely encourage you to do that. Follow me on social media. I'm sure I'll be chatting about it there too. I'm at Dr. Tammy Francis on social media, all platforms. So thank you for giving me the moment to just kind of do some housekeeping. I just needed to do that and just kind of just go back to what I started here in 2018 and how we're going to continue it. We're going to keep it moving. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep pressing in 2019. And so that's kind of where it all started and the whole purpose behind this podcast. And so each week I will upload a new podcast for you. Some will be just content or things that I've thought about. Some will be guests. If you go back to some previous episodes, we have some amazing guests that have been on the podcast that I invite you to check them out, follow them on social media, and engage with them. I'm sure it will be beneficial to you, and you will find something that you can use from those podcasts as well. So what is the inspiration? Today's topic is self-determination. We're setting goals. We're starting a new year. And so it's a great time to think about self-determination. I think that is the foundation for setting goals. Dr. Tammy, what are you talking about, girlfriend? What do you mean? So self-determination, we're going to get into that a little more, but let me just back up a little bit and just talk about the inspiration for this topic and why I thought, it's so fitting for January 1st, 2019 to share this topic, to start our year, to start embarking on our goals with this in mind. So last Friday, I was a speaker at a Kwanzaa celebration in my community, my local community. And for those of you that don't know, Kwanzaa is a celebration held here in the U.S., and it is celebrated from December 26th through January 1st. So 7 days, and honors African heritage in the African American culture. You know, it even for those that celebrate it and all 7 days, it tends to culminate with a feast and gift giving and all of that. But Kwanzaa is also about what it means to be human. And I spoke on principle number 2, Kujichagulia, which means self-determination. And so as I was speaking on Friday and sharing with the audience there and those that attended the event there, I was thinking, oh my goodness, why am I not sharing this with a broader audience besides my local community? And I thought about this is the foundation of thinking about and setting our goals for 2019 or whatever year you're listening to this. So principle number 2 is Kujichagulia. To define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. In English, self-determination. Typically, when we think about self-determination, we think of just determination, doing something, getting it done, right? But self-determination is the process by which a person controls their own life. Self-determination, I'm going to repeat it, y'all. The process by which a person controls their own life. And so when I think about that, I thought, what better way to think about this and talk about this word, if this is what I'm going to start the year with, is to talk about what I shared with the audience there. But let's break it down into the 4 parts of that definition of Kujichagulia. To define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. So number 1, I want you to think about, how are you defining yourself? How do others define you? Typically, you can probably answer how others define you very fast. You can answer that quickly without any hesitation. But when I ask you, how do you define yourself? There may be reason to pause. And the reason to pause is because you are probably going to say what other people say about you, not what you would say about yourself, what you know about yourself. And typically when others define us, we are trapped by titles and we are trapped by what we do. And that is only part of who we are. That's only part of what we can do to serve others. So I ask you, how do you define yourself? May not be able to answer it today, but I want you to think about how do you define yourself. And as you navigate your goals for 2019, as you look it back and reflect on those goals, look at the 5 things that you've put on that list, the 5 top goals. And how is that shaping how people will define you and how you define yourself? Which goes into point number 2. Name ourselves. What do people call you? What do you want to be called? Are those in alignment? Do those agree? Because what we need to really think about is sometimes people call us things based on their perception of who we are. But sometimes it's up to us to shape and define ourselves and to let people know how we want to be called, what we want to be named. So name ourselves. So those go really hand in hand. Number 1, to define ourselves. 2, to name ourselves. Number 3 is create for ourselves. What are you creating? What do you want to create in 2019? What is it that you desire? What do you want into your life? I invite you to think about, what legacy are you building? What are you leaving behind? What are you leaving for the world? What are you leaving for your children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, godchildren, right? What are you leaving behind? What have you created? What are you creating? How are you spending your time, money, and energy? Because what we spend our time, money, and energy on is what we are creating. And so sometimes it's just a shift. And this process, remember, self-determination is the process by which you control your own life. So maybe it's this process of bringing certain things into your life and getting rid of some things. We are all creators, here to create. And so we have been put here by the Creator to do that. So what are you creating for yourself? Are you building a legacy? Are you creating generational wealth, which could also be health? It doesn't necessarily mean money, but what is that you're leaving that's going to grow? So when you look at your goals, you must take a look and see, what is my talent? What is my gift? And am I using that in these goals? Am I tapping into that in these goals that I've set out for myself for 2019 or whatever year you're listening? Have I set that up? Because you should be living on purpose, using your purpose with passion to serve others. So first you have to figure out, what is it? What is it that I enjoy doing? What would I do for free? What do I enjoy doing? Now, my entrepreneurs, don't turn me off just yet. I don't necessarily mean for free. But what I'm saying is that you love that thing so much that you would do it no matter what. It doesn't mean you won't charge. It just means that you love it that much, that it's something that you're really passionate about and you have a passion for. What is your talent? What is your gift? And are you using that? Or are you doing those things that are for other people, that other people think you should do, that other people think you should be passionate about? Because that's their perception. That's how they define you. That's how they name you. See, we get trapped by titles. We get, trapped into those things. But at the core of it, what is it that you enjoy doing? What is your gift? And are you using that to create something for yourself and for those that will come after you? And it's this constant reassessment as we set goals. And we're setting goals every week. We're setting goals every month. We're setting goals every quarter, every year. We're always setting goals. And so this is a constant process and reassessment of, are these tapping into what I'm passionate about? To what my purpose is on earth? And how is what I'm doing, how are these goals going to define me and name me? Because that's important. Because whatever you put your time, money, and energy into is what people will associate with you. So you must decide, how do you want that to look? How do you want to control your own life and what you're doing? So number 1 was to define ourselves. Number 2 is to name ourselves, which goes right into that. And 3 is create ourselves, because what you are creating will name you and define you. And number 4 is speak for ourselves. So to define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves means that you are in control of your narrative. You should tell your own story. And how are you shaping that story? And how are you sharing your story? We're typically an advocate. We have causes we support different things. We do all these things. But you have to think that many times, I was going to say sometimes, but many times, what happens is that we stop being an advocate for ourselves. So part of that speaking for ourselves has been an advocate for yourself. What is it that you want? What is it that you desire? So you must tell your own story. You must control your narrative. So you say what people think about you, how they define you, how they name you. You control how people perceive who you are and what you do and what you have to offer the world. Is it limited to one thing when you have more than one thing? We are complex beings, y'all. We are so complex that even if we focus on one thing, that's not the only thing we're good at. That's not the only thing that we can do. Now, we must focus in order to get things accomplished. So I'm not saying that don't focus on one thing, but what I'm saying is that we are so much more complex that sometimes when we have goals and we think about the things we want to accomplish, they're not just in one area of our life. Which is why this podcast is about your life and or business, which means it can be your life as far as your education, far as your fitness and health. It could be part of, the area of your family, your travel, your faith, any of those things. And so think about, how are you controlling your narrative? How are you telling your story? I also want you to think about, it's one thing to do that with your goals, but you can also control your narrative, tell your story by what you put out in the world, as far as a post on social media or a blog that you are writing, the people, if you interview people and you have a show or something and you interview people, who are you allowing on your platform? All that speaks to who you are, what you support, and your belief system and what you do. So even as we navigate the world, and I know that I will probably have some of my students downloading this and listening to me. So I want us to think about what we're putting out in that world, and how is that defining who we are, naming who we are. Are we controlling that? Or are we letting it just spread like wildfire and just go and just things that we don't even know or we have not investigated? Sometimes we agree with people and then we don't know the backstory. So have you done your research? Have you made a conscious effort? Have you been intentional about how you want to address a topic, how you want to define yourself, name yourself, create for yourself? Because that will determine how you speak for yourself, for ourselves, how we speak for ourselves. So control your narrative and tell your story. Self-determination. It takes some reflection. You got to go inward. With self-determination, the motivation comes from the choices we make. Without the external influences or interferences. So sometimes it's taking a step back and just looking and seeing, like, what am I doing? What is my motivation? And in business, we always talk about, what is your why? Why are you doing that? Why do you believe that? Why do you care about this cause so much? Where's that motivation? And what choices, right, are you making? So as you create your goals and you start thinking about what it is you want to accomplish or change in your life, I offer you self-determination. Taking control of the process by which you tell your story. Kujichagulia. Define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. And I hope there's something on here that just got you thinking. I know. I asked so many questions. And this first one of the year is just to get you to start thinking about some of those answers to those questions that will help you determine what it is you want to accomplish this quarter, this year. And as you write down your goals and as you set things in motion for 2019, how is that defining who you are and how are you telling your story? How are you controlling your narrative? And so, self-determination, what you have inside the core of who you are, without external influences or interferences, how is that shaping who you are? Where's that motivation coming from? And throughout this year, we'll answer these questions. We will tackle these questions. I will offer my perspective on these questions, on the answers to these questions, and go through that. And I hope you'll join me. I hope you'll join me back and listen on future podcasts, and you listen to some of the previous ones. Definitely subscribe, download, review this. If you enjoyed it, please submit a review and rate it on whichever platform you downloaded it from, whether it was iTunes or Spotify. I'd appreciate your feedback and your support. I anticipate a wonderful year sharing with you and answering all the questions that I asked in this episode and addressing those areas that we spoke about and introduced in this episode. So join me next week for another episode. And if you're watching this years down the road or listening to this, I say watching, I apologize. So used to doing live broadcasts. But listening to this years down the road, I want you to still take the theme and the message of this podcast. Self-determination is at the core of what we do, because that determines who we are and where we're going. And self-determination is that one thing that will create that definition, create that thing that we're working on, that will create our story. And so self-determination is so important as you start something new, as you try to really tap into what it is you're meant to do. Remember, it's how we spend our time, money, and energy that will define us, name us, and will determine what we've created. And when you're proud of that, when you know it's something good, oh, y'all, then you can tell your story. You can tell it with confidence. You have just created the narrative that you would like to share. So, this year, as you reflect on your goals and as you confirm those goals, really think about, how are you controlling your own life? Where is that self-determination coming from? Is it external or is it internal? I am Dr. Tammy. I am your life strategist, literacy educator and consultant, speaker, mentor, and author. And if you have not checked out the playbook, I invite you to check out the playbook. The playbook is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble online. Definitely grab your copy. And I invite you to use it to help you set your goals. It is a playbook for planning and living on purpose, to help guide you in how you spend your time, your money, and your energy. And there's strategies, there's guides, there's templates in there that will help you do that. Remember to aspire for more and manifest more. Have a great one, you all.
Stuck in life, you should aspire for more. Connect with others who desire to aspire for more. Reach for your goals. When you do, you allow yourself to aspire for more. Dr. Tammy is here to help you aspire for more. When you believe in yourself, is possible. Believe in yourself, you'll get more. You should aspire for more. Aspire for more. You should aspire for more. Should aspire for more.